Upcoming on Complex Humanity.
I was very heavy on my joints and everything. So I had to lose a little bit of weight.
So this is even before you could start exercise.
Before I could start exercising, it was too sore for me. It was hectic for me.
Yeah.
Even just to go for a walk.
Because you're already carrying 200. I mean, I can't bench 200 Ks. So if you're carrying that whole day.
Can you imagine?
Wow.
Like carrying that type of weight. And I've got actually a very small bone structure. When I lost, I think I lost around 30 to 40 kilos.
I fought that for a long time. And I thought I'll go and,
do your thing.
I can do this at the gym by myself. But boy, oh boy, when you get the help, when you've got, people around you who understand what's happening with your body, it does make it easier.
Absolutely. The first thing that you need to do is when you wake up and you make that decision, stick with the decision.
Welcome to Complex Humanity. My name is Danny Van Billy, and we are super excited to have you on another show today. Today we're going to speak about stuff that my daughter actually totally is always on my case with. She'll be like, Daddy, what's that on your belly? And I'm like, oh, Esty, there's nothing like a child telling you the truth that you need to get to the gym, you need to get your act together, and it sucks. It's absolutely amazing, but it sucks. But today on the show, I have Janine Kutsia, right?
Yes. Hi,
Janine,
Danny.
Welcome to Complex Humanity.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I believe you have been doing miraculous stuff. Okay? You and I need to be friends because I need to learn whatever you've done. Because if people don't know just how much you have transformed your life.
Yeah.
Janine,
Danny.
how many kgs are we down?
So, Danny, it's now, up until now, 88.7 kilos that I've lost in a year and a half. Yeah.
Not 88. That's a human being.
That's a Backstreet Boy.
An actual Backstreet Boy.
Well, I always had this thing where I said I want to lose a person. So I think that person is now out of me.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like working on the second one.
You're like,
maybe a teenager this
you're
time.
The exorcist. You are taking people out of you physically.
I'm getting them to loosen from my body.
Oh, man. How's the journey been?
Listen, Danny, it's been up and down, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happen with you while you transform into this person. Well, you've got this idea of where you want to be, and how you want to get there is not always, if you look at it, you at this mountain in front of you, then you think to yourself, how am I ever going to do this?
Yeah.
So it hasn't been easy, but to walk it faithfully, you have to start on your knees. You have to start on your knees, because without God, you can't do it. You can't do it. I've got an amazing husband that's really, really so supportive. I mean, he's loved me through thick and thin.
Oh, wow. Through thick and thin, you were loved.
Yeah, when we got married, I was actually 30 kilos heavier than what I am now. So he's also experiencing this new wife.
Oh, wow.
If I lose another 10 kgs, that's when I met him. I was that light when I met him.
Yeah.
But it's a journey and it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that it's an emotional journey. It's an emotional journey, to be honest with you. It's very nice to hear when people see you and they go, oh my word, look how much you've lost and you look so amazing. But I'm the one still standing in the mirror naked and seeing myself. And still, I see the flaws still. I still see what I still need to lose. And I do take those compliments, you know, and I thrive on them in a proper way, not in a way that I think like, oh my word, I've made it now. I'm still humble in my experience. But yeah, there's a lot of mental and emotional and spiritual that you need to go through when you go through this journey. Every morning to wake up and to persevere, to keep on going and not to give up. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. But if you see the results, like my husband said to me when I started this journey, he said to me, you don't look at the mountain. Look at your feet. Take it step by step, day by day. And that's what I did. I took it day by day, because if the day I got onto the scale and the scale said to me, I'm weighing 207 kilos.
Sure.
I knew that I won't have a proper fulfillment life with my husband and my kids.
Is that where you started at 207?
207 kilos. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think weight loss, or not weight loss. Let's start with weight gain. They see weight gain as someone's just eating.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that is it's probably the most simplistic way that we explain weight
100%.
gain. You know, I, for example, know that when I am stressed, this area here,
it works by itself.
It does a lot of work.
It's its own factory.
It's its own factory, you know? So I've kind of had to understand that food has a different relationship with each human being.
Yeah.
There are those who don't eat while they're stressed. There are those who have more of an emotional baggage that's probably
trauma.
sitting in them. Trauma. And it's manifesting in food, you know?
Yeah.
And when we look and all we're seeing is the food, and we're not going into the different diagnosis and really understanding.
The receptor, I always say where it starts.
Okay.
But Danny, I've been through so many medical checks, and by all of that, I was the most, like, I need to say it now. I'm actually Afrikaans. So I'm now looking for the English word here.
What's the word in Afrikaans?
Gesondste mens.
Oh my goodness. I will translate it to you guys, but I don't want to lie on a podcast.
It is the most unhealthiest, healthy way that I was living my life, with all my test results that I've done with doctors, my blood tests, my everything. I was unhealthy, but they couldn't find the culprit.
Okay.
So basically I was living a healthy life, but being so unhealthy. Being overweight is unhealthy. But with all of this that I've done, I'm going to be honest with you that obesity is an illness. It's not just eating. Okay. It's not just at one stage, my cortisol levels was so high because my body is under so much stress and under so much pressure that your cortisol levels is just so high. I could eat lettuce and I could pick up weight from those lettuce.
Oh, wow.
So the thing is to...
Hold on. Let me what is that?
So your cortisol levels is basically your stress levels in your body.
Okay.
And that has a lot to do with a lot of things. Like I said about the trauma.
Okay.
If your body went under trauma or you holding back onto even childhood trauma, that doesn't disappear. You have to actually pray and clear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then by that, with doing the exercises, because I started with gym and all of that, with all that, you work towards getting your stress levels down.
Okay.
Because if the stress level can come down, the cortisol level will come down and your body will start regulating again. The inflammation will start going out of the body, and your sugar levels will start working more correctly, your insulin and all of that. But my biggest problem was my cortisol levels were skyrocket high.
Sure.
And it's because of a lot of things. I mean, I have my own business. I'm a mom. I need to be a mom, a wife, a businesswoman. I need to look after my health. I need to, to be a mother and a wife and a businesswoman, all in one.
You're balancing.
You
are
just balancing,
yeah.
and still there's things that goes on with you as a person by yourself. The fights that you're fighting within yourself. I had to go to the pit of everything and to sort out the pit of everything. And the pit was basically my trauma.
Your trauma.
Yeah, I had also childhood trauma.
Okay.
I didn't grow up as a very privileged child. Well, I had an amazing mother. I grew up without a father. My father passed away when I was still a little girl, my biological father. I was not even 2 years old when he passed away. So I grew up with just a mom, and we were 4 kids. And she had a really tough life to bring up 4 children. And she also didn't have the most amazing marriage with my biological father.
Okay.
So within her womb, I also had trauma inside her womb. And so then obviously, if you go deeper into your spiritual side and you start learning the truth in a deeper meaning, God's truth in a deeper meaning, you actually realize that trauma starts within the womb.
Yes.
And you need to go back to all of that and start cleaning up all of what's happened. So then I grew up with my mom and my sister and my 2 brothers, and I had an amazing grandmother that also stayed with us.
Hello, Oma.
Allah Oma. She was also like a mother to me, because my mom had to really work hard and all of that. But there's a lot of childhood trauma that comes with growing up with just a single parent. And then my mom met my stepfather when I was 13 years old. And we gained 2 sisters.
Okay.
Their mother also passed away before my stepfather met my mom.
Okay.
And they used to work together, and he was like, we always had a home or a house. Let me put it like that. As when we were just with my mom, my sister, my 2 brothers, and my Oma, we had a house. We had a safe space. We did have a bed to sleep in. We had all the things we needed, but on a very low level. Okay, so
where was this? Where were you growing up?
In Kempton Park.
In Kempton Park.
Yeah, in Kempton Park. And then when my mom met my stepfather, they dated for 3 years, and then they got married, and I got 2 stepsisters, and they are amazing. Wow. We were like one big family. And for the first time in my life, I experienced how a home felt like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because my mom was always working, and she was also socializing and going out, and and we basically grew up with my grandmother always being at home. And so when we met my father, it was like, oh, this is how life's supposed to be. Mom is there every night cooking, and I've got a dad there, and I've got all these brothers and sisters and all of that, and it was a loving home. It was really a loving home. And in the beginning, it was very hard for me to actually, adjust to having a father in the house.
Wow.
So I was a bit of a rebel.
It's almost like the dysfunction was meeting a functional home.
Yeah.
And, the rebel came out.
100%. So I didn't make it easy for my dad. But he loved us unconditionally because he loved my mom. And he was like, he's going to take this woman with her 4 kids because he loves my mom enough for that.
Wow.
And he really made us part of everything. He looked after us as if we were his own children as well. He loved us like that as well. Me and my youngest stepsister shared a room, and we became the bestest of best friends, and we still are. We're the closest of all the brothers and sisters. She stays
What's
in
her
Cape
name?
Town, Monique.
Monique.
Yes.
Hello, Monique.
But yeah, we all close. All the brothers and sisters are very close. We all care about each other a lot. But yeah, we like the 2 of us were the youngest, and all the brothers and sisters are growing up and they're doing their thing, and we like just doing everything together, you know.
Yeah.
So it was also a safe haven and a safe space for me with my sister Monique. Yeah, and we grew up and everything, and I with this transition of my mom getting married and me to get used to, there's a father now, and my mom doesn't have the same surname as me, you know, teenager styles.
Yeah.
You get a bit of a rebellion side on you, and you take it a bit not on the nice side, even though it's a good thing happening, you know. Yeah, so it took me a couple of years to adjust to that. And I used to be a very athletic person. I used to do athletics. I used to do sports, netball, hockey, all of that. And being a rebellion and just turning around and just decided, no, I don't want to do this anymore and everything. The wheels basically came off. But then I started dealing with another trauma that surfaced when I actually was a child. There was a trauma that surfaced inside of me going, okay, I've never told my mom. I'm now in grade 11, and I've never told my mom something happened to me as a younger little child.
Okay.
I kept this secret inside of me. And then as I was growing up, you know, you start encountering and you've got hormones and there's now boys, and I want a boyfriend, but I'm too scared to have one. And then all that trauma started coming, and then I started eating emotionally. I didn't want to be pretty anymore. I didn't want to look after myself anymore. I didn't want to do sports anymore because I was molested as a child.
Sure.
And then only I came forward and told my mom what happened. But then I didn't deal with it. I just carried on in life.
Would you say sometimes we think that because I've spoken about it, I don't necessarily have to sit in the emotions.
No, you just
to do
leave
the
it.
work in it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I told mom.
I told now it's
I'm
open,
done
it's
with it,
out
yeah.
there. So let me leave it now. I think it's also fight and flight.
Yes.
You know, it's like you would rather just, okay, I'm out with it. That's now
That's
how
enough.
it is, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that happened to me, and it just spiraled from there. Like I just became this person that didn't give about anything. I even lost my faith at one stage, and I've arrived and I'm living life and I'm a social butterfly and I'm drinking and partying and, you know, doing all the wrong kind of things.
Yeah.
Left after school, left for a gap year to go overseas to the Netherlands. It was an amazing experience. I grew up very quickly, very fast there.
Yeah.
But with all of that, I must be honest with you, God was with me all the time. Because I never gave up my womanhood to any man out there.
Wow.
For that, I think I keep on telling myself that's maybe why God let me gain weight.
Like, okay, let me just protect this one. We'll add a bit of weight here. It'll be a barrier.
Because then she won't take off what needs to be taken off, you know?
But Janine, sorry, you're raising maybe key things that I want to just quickly revisit. When children stop doing what they comfortably did for a long time, parents should be careful to not just think that it's just a rebellion.
Yeah.
Because here's a child who's sportive, who's been athletic and competitive the whole time.
Yeah.
And they wake up one day and they stop.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to just get caught up and you don't want to do anything.
You're lazy and just get up and now you leave all that you've worked hard for.
Yes.
A lot of these things made me do things differently with my children. I'm very invested into my 2 girls.
Okay.
My husband and I adopted our girls 10 years ago. We met them and our adoption actually went through the beginning of this year. So it was a 10-year fight.
Oh, man. Congratulations.
Yeah. And we just wanted to, with all my life experience and everything that I went through, I'm so invested in them because years ago, us as children were seen and not heard.
And not heard, yes.
For me, it's different. I
Yeah.
want to hear how was your day.
Yes.
I want to pick up if there's something that's not right. Because being in the generation where we were like, you are seen and not heard, that made you not talk.
Yes.
It made you keep your silence. Because the person that also did that to me said, if you're going to tell your mom, she knows you are lying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how many years did I walk around with that silence? And that manifested inside of me to actually just to let go at a stage where it was very important not to let go.
Let go, yeah.
And then I let go.
Sure.
So, yeah, I did wrong things in my life. I did test the waters and everything, but I think God had a bigger plan with me so that I can one day tell my story and also bring hope to those that feel lost and feel like there's no way out. There is a way out.
If I could take you back to that stage, because in my head, as you were talking, I'm seeing someone listening to us right now who's also there. And maybe you, the parent watching, and your child's just changed in their behavior. And you seeing the behavioral change, but you're not really aware of the emotional baggage the child is carrying.
Yeah.
What would you advise yourself if you could go back to the child who was told, be quiet, no one will believe you, or your mom will think you're lying? What would you tell yourself now if you could go back to that girl?
Be brave. Be brave and bold. Step forward.
Sure.
Talk about it.
Sure.
Talk about it. I think it could have saved me in a lot of ways in my life. Not to be as, desperate for attention.
Yes.
Doing things just to fit in. If I could go back and tell that little girl is to step up, be brave, and be steadfast. Believe in who you are and not who someone tells you to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that in our modern culture, victims of sexual abuse, and I hate to use the word victims, let's say overcomers of sexual abuse are encouraged to speak and have the platform to speak?
Danny, I didn't have the platform to speak as well. But I think there's always a way out. There's always a way out to not keep yourself silent. Go and speak to, if you feel you're in a situation where you can't bring it out to the mother or the father or the aunt or the sister or the brother, make a plan to go and see a pastor or a very good friend, somebody that you can actually place your trust in. But the thing for me is when everything came out, it was also not in a very good way where it came forward. Like,
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Danny, at that stage, I just wanted attention from boys, because I didn't believe in who I am, and I didn't have any confidence at that stage. So for me, it was like just to be seen, just to be heard, just to get attention. Can I also just have a boyfriend? I would take anything, whatever comes my way, as long as I get a boyfriend or a kiss from a boy. Whereas I think that shouldn't be like that. That shouldn't be like that. And when my mom had one evening, we were having a bit of a tiff with one another, and I just turned around and I went like, but you weren't even there for me when I got molested.
Sure.
And she was like, excuse me? This is the first time I'm hearing about this. And I said, yeah, well, where were you? Now you want to come and tell me how I mustn't be such a desperate girl. I must believe in myself. You see, then it's blame shifting.
Yeah.
Whereas I just should have talked.
Yeah.
But I was also scared. I mean, I was little. I was in primary school. I was a little girl. I think, if I think back to it, what is it, grade 3, 4?
Sure.
I remember the standards. I was in standard 2.
It's standard 2. I hear standard 2, okay? Grade 4, I have to figure out as well.
Grade 3, grade 4, around there.
Yeah.
And I've worked so hard going through that, and all that trauma. Actually, it doesn't affect me anymore.
Wow.
I've worked through it with a friend of mine, Corneille Fourie, Pastor TC.
I know
Fourie.
Pastor TC. Very naughty guy.
Yeah, he worked through me with a lot of my trauma. And and it helped me a lot to cope, because there was a stage where I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive my mom, because I would blame her. I had to go through a lot of forgiveness and everything, but you still hold on to that victimization. Like that happened to you.
It's almost like a false identity that's been
that's
built.
why I'm eating, and that's why I have a husband. He loves me the way I am, and I don't have to do anything about it. And I've let go about the past. And, but it doesn't go away unless you actually deal with it. And as soon as I started dealing with it, I turned 40.
Sure.
And in the Bible, everything states about 40 years, 40 this, 40, 40, 40. So I turned 40 in Mauritius, and my husband took me to Mauritius for my 40th birthday. And he woke me up early that morning. It was 5 o'clock, and he said to me, come, I want to walk with you to the ocean. And I thought, we actually on holiday, 5 o'clock, seriously. But I didn't know he had a plan.
Sure.
So we were there by the ocean, and we walked into that still water, and it was the most beautiful, beautiful scene. It looked like heaven touched the earth. It was, that water was crystal clear, and it was a straight line, and it really just connected with heaven, with earth. And he said, today I want to wash your feet here in the ocean, because it's a new era that you're going in. 40 is a milestone. And he prayed for me. And I still have a photo where I was, after we were in the ocean, I went back and I sat onto those lounger chairs. And I'm actually getting shivers now.
I'm even seeing it, guys. I'm in Mauritius right now. I don't know about you. I'm in Mauritius.
And I was sitting there, and I was looking at him, and he's standing there in the ocean, and I could see he's like looking far out, and he's thinking about something, and I'm sitting on the lounger waiting for him to finish now. And I looked at him and I'm like, I've really failed you as well.
Sure.
And that's where I decided I'm not going to let it be part of us anymore. I need to give him also the wife he wants to adore. And he does adore me.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what. He loved me all the way. But I could see there was becoming a disconnection. And not from his side, more from my side. I was pulling back because you don't feel and look right.
Yeah.
So you don't think this man actually needs this type of woman in his life.
Sure.
And still he's there. So
After years of carrying the weight of unprocessed trauma, battling depression, emotional eating, and self-doubt, Janine made a life-changing decision that led to an incredible transformation, losing nearly 89 kilograms while rebuilding her mind, body, soul, and spirit. Please subscribe now and stay tuned for part 2.